All right then, let's talk about another big blow in a season of big blows in English domestic rugby. Well, the national team's not been doing that great either, has it? But Wasps have been denied their place in the English Championship. They've been demoted to the bottom of the rugby pyramid in England, and this is another negative story, another big blow for one of the most storied and historied clubs in English rugby. So what does this all mean? We need to talk about it. I've even taken a little break from my holiday to do just that. So welcome to Greece. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers. If you appreciate the fact that there's rugby content for you here even when I'm on holiday, then I hope I earn your subscription, and I hope you'll leave your comments and also share and all the rest of it. Thank you for that. So yeah, it's nice there, isn't it? Just walking through the olive groves on the way to the little coastal path from where I'm staying in the Peloponnese, the Marni Peninsula in Greece. You can just see the that's the Gulf of Mycenae as it goes into the Ionian Sea. Very nice too. So Wasps, what's the situation? Well, we know they went bust earlier in the season. They didn't have the finances to sustain their operation at Coventry. They had a lot of people they owed money to, so as a result the administrators were brought in, insolvency proceedings started, but Wasps, unlike Worcester, were, because they managed to fulfill certain criteria with the RFU, they were said, okay, well, you can have a place in the Championship next season, but we need to see a few things. Wasps haven't been able to organise those things, and as a result that place has been revoked. And this is obviously just a really sad story, and you absolutely feel, first and foremost, for the fans. They had no part of this, wasn't their fault, whether it's the fans that historically were part of the Wasps organisation in Acton over all those years, through amateur and then professional rugby when they were winning Heineken Cups, whether it's when they moved to High Wycombe or when they moved to Coventry. It's sad state of affairs. Same goes for the players that have played with them in the past. I think the one thing I'd want to say at the very start, this is lovely, isn't it? One thing I want to say at the very start is Wasps are always going to be there. So as painful as this seems now, it's important to remember Wasps, the history, all that they've achieved, that's going nowhere. That's been established, and in fact one of the things that the people behind Wasps have done is they said they secured the intellectual property, the brand, and that means that it may take years before we see Wasps anywhere near the top level again, if ever, but that history is going nowhere. All of those memories still exist, and nothing can ever change that. And what I'd also say is we'll look at Richmond and look at London Scottish, and there are others, London Welsh. There are teams that have faced these kind of problems through the last 25 or so years of professionalism, and they have come back. So it is possible, and I'm sure it will happen for Wasps. So it will feel raw and painful now, but they're not going anywhere. As for, what else will I say? Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So the situation with I mentioned Richmond, and that does make me feel, in a way, what's happening now is what should have happened as soon as Wasps went bust. I do feel it was a little bit unfair that it appeared Wasps were getting special treatment just because of the history in the club, which I value, that they were getting special treatment and weren't being dealt with in the same way as other clubs who've faced administration and insolvency, like Richmond in the past, where they automatically go to the bottom of the league pyramid. The problem I had with Wasps being given a place in the Championship is it's a little bit like bank bailouts. It almost incentivises bad practice because you feel like you're not going to face the consequences of your actions. And I feel, particularly with rugby in a precarious position, it's really important that we don't do that, and that people know if you live beyond your means and you can't sustain it, you will get punished. And I feel like Wasps had a little bit of preferential treatment going on, which didn't sit comfortably with me. I understand it, and they were talking about mitigating factors with COVID and the like, and I get that, but I think the situation that Wasps now face themselves in, as sad as it is, and it is, don't get me wrong, I think it was probably what should have happened at the very start. Obviously, I wish it could have all been avoided. And for that matter, this whole story and this whole saga dovetails quite nicely with the video that I made just before I went away on holiday, which is in the feed now, about the issues with rugby. And I talked about rugby generally, but I was coming at it from an English rugby perspective. The issues with rugby and how we can solve them, because they're deep-rooted, they're not going anywhere, and there's no easy solution. And fundamentally, what's gone wrong with Wasps, which is exactly the same as gone wrong with English domestic rugby, to an extent the English national team, and to an extent world rugby overall, is that there is no long-term thinking and strategy, and there's too much trying to hold on to what you've got, or to even deny other people from having a foot in the door. And the great example of that is that, did you notice in what Wasps said in their statement was, what did they say? They said that one of the issues that they'd found was that they weren't able to get the financial stability in place because of the uncertainty over promotion and relegation from the Championship. Which, when I read that, I thought, well, that's a little bit rich, because Championship clubs have been saying that for years, and Wasps were one of the clubs that were very, very happy to keep Championship clubs on the outside, to ring fence, to behave a bit like a cartel. That the Premiership, even when it wasn't ring fenced, it was all but ring fenced. It was ring fenced by another name, because the funding that the teams coming up, again, I talk about this in the video in the feed already, the funding that the teams coming up from the Championship get was way lower. They had to wait until after the playoffs, which was into June, before they could then know if they were in the Premiership, so it gave them no time to assemble a squad. So these clubs in the Championship have been really poorly treated. They've been absolutely hamstrung, and they've faced a load of Premiership clubs that are quite happy to say, I'm all right, Jack. Oh, I'm going to go down here. And I just think it's a bit rich of Wasps, or at least it's definitely ironic that that is the reason that Wasps were given, why they weren't able to secure the necessary funding and building blocks in place to look after themselves. So it's regrettable, but maybe this will be a wake-up call for other Premiership clubs looking at Wasps and saying, hold on a minute, if something happens to us, we're not only going to drop, we're going to find it really hard to come back, which is where Wasps are at now. And I think it's not just Wasps, because it's the whole organisation. I'm not pinning this on Wasps overall, but this is what I mean. These Premiership clubs were quite happy to take all the cash for themselves, ring fence themselves effectively, and shut out effectively the Championship clubs, and the fact that that's happened has now come back and bitten Wasps on the ass. It's a really, really sorry state of affairs. I don't have the full thought out solutions, but again, I'll just finish by saying that at some point rugby's got to realise that some turkeys have to vote for Christmas. Some people are going to have to make take a short-term hit and build something that is actually sustainable in the long term. But again, to return to the initial point, if you're a Wasps fan, if you're an ex-Wasps player, then your club is still there, those titles are still there, and they will always have a clubhouse somewhere where those pictures and that honours board will be kept on the wall. And ultimately, when all is said and done, that is what really matters when it comes to rugby. So I wish Wasps all the best. Wish none of what's happened has happened, but let's see where this one goes, shall we? Thoughts, comments, like and share, and I'll see you on the next video.